Uh, Good morning. I feel like you answered all my questions already. I may just make some up on the
Oh, great.
on the fly. Thank you very much for being here today. We don't have a ton of time, so I want to make sure that we actually get to the Q&A. I just want to say it's good to have you out of the heat lamps and in the spotlight for a change as well. The first thing, I just want to get to a few questions about you and your motivations, and then we have some questions that the audience has posed. I'm sort of delighted to ask them because they touch on some serious things. So before being the secretary, Madam Secretary, you were a philanthropist, working on education choice for like 25 years. And like I said, now you're the secretary. You're here in DC. You're not taking a paycheck. Tell us how this happened.
Well, Darrell, I think I told a little bit of it during my remarks today. It really has been an iterative journey, and yet when I look back, for 3 decades, I really have been focused on trying to help kids like Anji and Denisha, whom I've just spoken about. I also think about people like Michael. I got a lot of flack for telling Michael's story a few weeks ago. A young man who had a very bad experience in high school in Connecticut, and for whom he fortunately has a second chance now, and is doing well in a community college, earning a degree in an honors program to become an emergency room nurse. But stories like Michael's tear me apart, and I know that for every Michael, there are tens of thousands of other Michaels, and my heart is just for them, and I want to help them become everything that they're actually meant to be, to have an opportunity, to have the kind of choices and the kind of opportunities that I've had.
So you raised this as an interesting point too. I think most people in this room, certainly most people in advocacy, policy, charter school leaders, people who are in classrooms trying to make a difference every day, look at their own lives and remember a moment where a particular choice happened or a great teacher happened. What's the most important moment in your own education?
I wouldn't say I had one most important moment. My reflection on my own education suggests that there were many moments of boredom in school, and the high points were teachers who were really engaging and engaged me in different ways. My high school civics teacher was one of my favorites. My high school band teacher was another favorite. So I wouldn't say there was one important moment, but when I think about my own experience, on balance it was positive, but I think it could have been a lot more positive if I had engaging subjects and classes in a different way, and this was a long time ago already.
Sure.
So I think about, and I talk to my kids a lot about this too, about their experiences in school. Learning should be exciting. We should be engaging kids' curiosities from the moment they start and engage in lifelong learning, and encourage young people to just pursue the courses and pursue the avenues that they really have a passion for.
So you mentioned a high school band for the peanut gallery in the back. What instrument?
I played percussion.
Okay.
Lots of different fun things.
There it is. Okay.
It's a variety.
Drummer on the stage. I like this. Cowbell. Okay.
Cowbell, yes.
More cowbell.
I was never allowed to play the timpani, though.
Okay.
Because we had a really good timpanist, and I just didn't get that opportunity. But everything else in the percussion section.
Okay. Well, I think you're beating up the bureaucracy now, so the percussion continues. So I have some serious questions now. We can get back to the rainbows and leprechauns thing later. So from California, I know you think quality education is a civil right. I've worked with you and your organizations for a very long time, so I've heard you say it, and I know you believe it. You spent the last 25 years working to give students of color, and really low-income students of color in particular, better schools as a result. Some folks here don't know if they believe that you believe that, and they question your commitment around these issues. What do you think about those criticisms, and how do you intend to use your office to make sure that students are protected under the federal civil rights framework and other such things.
Sure. How I've felt about them, the criticisms have been hurtful. I will admit that, because I think anyone who knows me knows that they couldn't be further from the truth. I think discrimination in any form is wrong. And I have said before, and I'll say again, the department is committed to ensuring that every child has a safe and nurturing environment. And we are and will be continuing to pursue allegations of discrimination in any form as well. So that has been a real hurtful thing for me personally, because it's not who I am.
Okay, thank you. It's a tough question. I got one from two educators, one from Maryland and one from Ohio. As charter school educators, my observations are that the political climate is growing more adversarial, and that the relationship is deteriorating between district schools and charter schools. How is the Department of Education trying to bring them together so they can share and learn better from one another? Any thoughts?
Well, I think, we shouldn't be in an us versus them mentality no matter what kind of school or what kind of education we're offering. Again, I think, as I said, I think our focus really needs to be on students and doing what's right for individual students. And if we worry less about the moniker we put on a type of education and more about meeting individual students' needs, I think we're going to all be better off in the long term.
You can do that again if you want to.
Clap for Durrell.
Do it again.
Clap for Durrell.
I got an interesting question from an advocate in North Carolina. How can our colleges and universities better support the nation's charter schools? Do you have any strategies to promote this collaboration with the reauthorization of the Higher Education Act?
Very good question around, I think there's a number of opportunities, well, a couple of opportunities for colleges and universities. First of all, those that are able to charter schools, I think I would encourage them to do more.
To authorize,
there
right.
are many, yeah, that's right, authorize them. I know that there are a number of colleges and universities that actually have sponsored and authorized charters on their own campuses, but in Michigan, for example, there are a number of really great public universities that have done an amazing job of chartering a wide variety of schools, and I think that approach is a really good one. It really helps to connect the colleges with students in a new and unique way. I think there's also an opportunity through schools of education within these universities to encourage students to be placed in schools other than traditional public schools. And I know that doesn't happen a lot of the time, but I think that's an opportunity. With regard to the Higher Education Act and the discussion around reauthorization, I frankly think that now is the time and the opportunity to, instead of amending an act that's 50 years old, to look afresh at what we want in the 21st century and really start with a clean sheet of paper around how to best support students and how to ensure that they know and are aware of the widest variety of pathways to success as adults.
Is there, how would you suggest, because I know we got some fans of this move here, how would you suggest people in the audience interact with the office to give you thoughts on a new approach to this?
Well, you certainly can interact with the office, but I also encourage you to interact with your legislators, because ultimately Congress is going to be the author of this, whatever it is. And I think they need to hear, if you agree with the notion that we should start with a clean sheet of paper and support the things that are really going to support students in higher education, then sending that word and getting that word through to your legislators to encourage them to think in a new way, I think would be very, very helpful.
Great. We have one question from a school leader in Idaho. And you sort of mentioned this earlier about funding. and that innovation is sort of the problem, not resources. This person says, I appreciate all the department's help in opening new charter schools, but what's being done to help charter schools already in existence that struggle with funding equity? And the school leader cites a recent study from the University of Arkansas that showed that on average, charter schools are funded at about $5,700 less than district schools. Like, what are your thoughts on that and how that problem should be tackled?
Well, this has been an issue from the beginning with charters, and I think that legislators are becoming increasingly aware of this reality. With the implementation of ESSA, there will be a requirement for transparent information around the cost per pupil in all of the schools in a state. So that will be one avenue to be able to get some of the information out on that. But I think that, again, we need to be continuing to focus on the notion of investing in individual students and not so much investing in buildings or systems. And I think if we keep talking about that and the reality that every child is equally valued, we can begin to migrate the conversation in that direction much more effectively.
I'm always going to pause for the applause. So, a bit of a technocratic question, but a really good one. So it's really about quality versus fast growth. You know, a lot of people are saying who are concerned that your philosophy, the administration's philosophy, will be one of chartering for chartering's sake without an emphasis on quality. I think at the same time, there's this emergent discussion about like pluralism among school types and like more nuanced ways to measure effectiveness. Well, what do you think about that? What do you have to say?
Well, I know it's a robust discussion, and I'm happy to be a part of the discussion about how we can meet the needs of students today. And I think, again, our focus should be on not choice for choice's sake, but choice because parents are demanding something different for their children. And for every year that they don't have that opportunity, their child is missing out. And when I hear some of these improvement plans being suggested that, well, we won't see the results for 10 years, or we won't be fully implemented until 15 years. Well, a child's going to be all the way through school by then. And so, again, our focus needs to be on individual kids and what do we need to do to help them today, not tomorrow, not next year, not 5 years from now. But again, choice for choice's sake is not the issue. It's choice to be able to meet the needs of kids.
Okay. Okay, so last question, because I know you're on a very tight timetable. What is the most important lesson you've learned working in the federal government for the last 4 months, other than that people take spelling mistakes on Twitter very seriously?
I have confirmed that there's a lot of red tape, and there's even more than I had feared. And I think the big lesson for me is be very careful about what you want the federal government to do, because even with the best of intentions, everything the federal government begins ultimately becomes more cumbersome and more belabored and more complicated. So a very good example of this, some of you may have read about it recently, but there's a program called Upward Bound. That's a competitive grant program that was the application process for which was started and completed before I took office, but the results were beginning to be communicated when I was in office for a few weeks. And it was discovered that a number of the applicants had made errors in formatting. So some of the applications had some single spacing instead of double spacing. Some of them had 11-point font instead of 12-point font. I mean, it was all kinds of formatting errors that were supposedly rejecting them from being able to be a part of the competition. Now, these kinds of things are just befuddling to me. And apparently this has been going on with this particular competition and others like it for a number of secretaries, and nobody has really tackled it and done something about it. So as soon as I found out about it, we did away with those requirements and have said, going forward, applications will be considered on their merit, not on formatting inaccuracies or errors. So just an example, but there are dozens and dozens more.
I'd like to thank you for coming to talk to everybody here today. I know this audience is very interested in your position on some very important issues of charter growth and equity across the country. We get a round of applause to the Secretary.
Thanks. Thank you all.